All right. Good morning and welcome to a lovely snowy day, this April 21st. So a bit of basic overview of what all we've been looking at. Obviously, perspectives on morality. What is the goal? What is the point of morality? What is it all aiming us towards? Anyway? Absolutely. It's meant towards aiming us towards enjoy the good life. We all desire, we all want, we all pursue happiness. How is it that we can achieve that? We saw that in looking at the two basic perspectives on why to practice morality. There was first the morality of obligation. What did that say? Anybody remember? Reach to the beginning of your notes. The perspective of the morality of obligation said that we have to oblige in following certain rules, certain mores, because if we don't, we may not gain our happiness and others may gain their happiness at our expense. Hence it is that we need to, all of us, feel obliged to do that. Sort of social contract that we inherently sign with one another. If we follow these basic things, we may not get the full happiness we want, the fullness of what we desire, but we will not lose. We will at least not lose our happiness. Whereas the perspective of the morality of happiness says that practicing these ideas is what will lead us toward that fullness of happiness, that fullness of joy, that which cannot be lost and can only be lost if we do not practice this. This, of course, the perspective that is seen in Catholic morality, Christian morality. All these things are not just done to gain a minimum level of happiness, but to fully awaken within us what we are created and are called to be. And of course, we can only act in a moral manner because we have the freedom to do so. Right? We have the freedom to act and not to act. But again, what is the whole goal of this freedom? Or how is it practiced out? The two major perspectives with that. First, of indifference. That all that matters is being able to choose. The only point of freedom, the only reason for it, is for me to be able to decide. Whereas the perspective of freedom of excellence says that I have the freedom so that I can choose, that I can freely enter into becoming what I am supposed to be. Freedom doesn't exist for me to just do whatever I want. It is for me to desire, to pursue, to achieve that which has been put before me. To choose the greatest good, to choose the good that leads me toward happiness. So then, entering into this, we ask you, how is it we can practice morality? How is it, if we see it as something for pursuing our happiness, something that we are free to excel in, how is it we can do this? And we, of course, do it in the virtues. Why the virtues? What is a virtue, first of all? What was the basic definition we gave for a virtue? A habit that inclines us, orients us toward the good. Why is it we focus on it being a habit? Because we are habitual creatures. We are not random in what we do. We are habitual. Now, of course, our habits can change, and they do change over time, depending on circumstance, depending on our lifestyle, what's going on in our lives. But we are not fully random creatures.
I know people who are very just naturally random, but that's a different story.
They're not very virtuous then, are they?
I think they are.
Well, they're not truly 100% random, though, are they?
No.
There's room for randomness. I don't want to make it sound like. But all of us have those habits that we practice. However, whether everything we do is basically a habit, whether the minimum that we need to do is a habit. So we always look at how it is we can cultivate these habits within us. And especially the habitual prepares us for the random. Coming in today, for example, nice snowy day, random things can happen, right? Random things on the road, random things even walking in here. Cars slipping, crashing, snow or branches falling out of the trees, especially as many of them have leaves on them.
Well, it's springtime.
Branch down even more.
Be hot, not cold.
Oh, yeah. So, the habitual can prepare us for encountering the random. It can strengthen us and make us ready for that whenever it may come. So, of course, then looking at this exercise of these virtues in their sort of natural perspective first, what all of us can absolutely pursue. And those are, of course, those cardinal virtues. Why are they called cardinal? Because they're nice and red. Yeah, because they are the cardis, the hinge upon which the moral life depends. It cannot open or shut, it cannot move without these virtues. So then going from there, first to the practice of temperance. What does temperance cover? What area or practice of ours does temperance cover?
Right use of goods.
Basically, yes. The right use of goods. Or the right use of those things that we need. They may not necessarily be just goods. For example, sleep. We ought to be temperate with our sleep. Not too little, not too much, or at least not too much too often. Right discernment and right moderation of all of these things. To understand and how to move towards that. Why? Because ultimately our happiness is not in pleasure. We must always remember that. Our happiness is not merely pleasure. It's far deeper. In fact, we talked about two types of happiness, didn't we? In Catholic morality. What were those? Remember the two types? First of all, there was that temporal happiness that is quick and fleeting at times. Felicitas. But then there is also, or more importantly, that abiding eternal happiness, beatitude, can never be lost. Felicitas is fleeting. We can be satisfied that the semester is ended, that we've turned everything in. But you know what? Either another semester is coming or real life is coming. Now you got to work. Now you got to get a job. Now you got to do something. You can't just wake up at 7 in the morning or 7:45 to go to 8 a.m. class. So, fleeting happiness. Whereas beatitude is never ending, never stopping. Temperance reminds us to orient ourselves more towards that beatitudo. Not saying the temporal happiness is wrong, not saying that. But it is not our ultimate goal in practicing morality. And in fact, at times, we must give it up in order to gain the greater happiness. So, moving on from temperance onto prudence. That right discernment and right application. To understand what it is I need to do, how I need to act, and then to apply myself to it. In fact, one cannot practice temperance without practicing prudence. Because you need to understand. Maybe I do have too much of a good thing, or too much of a temporal thing. Maybe I desire too much of these things. The prudence using our intellectual faculty to be able to understand and to say what it is I need to do, or what it is I'm called to be. To not act rashly, nor to overthink it. Sit there and we can overthink it so much that we move past the time to be able to act and to operate. Then, of course, moving from temperance and prudence on to justice. The one virtue that is perhaps the most praised, as it were, today, though not necessarily as a virtue. What is justice at a basic level? What does it mean to practice justice? Simple definition, if I remember, is to give others their due. Give others what is due to them, what belongs to them. Now, of course, justice is not just something that we practice, though, on an individual level, person to person. Why? Because we don't just exist as individuals. We exist also as a part of the community. Whichever type of community, the university community, the civic community, the church, the ecclesial community, the entire community of humanity. So we have a responsibility to act with justice, practicing justice, not just towards the individual that I encounter, whether the random one or the one I know well, whether the foreigner or my neighbor. But we are also called to practice justice towards the entire community. And the community to practice justice towards us. If we don't, if one of those don't, there is a great imbalance. And everything is thrown off. Okay. I just lost the Zoom thing real quick. That was weird. Sorry about that. I think the Zoom went a little crazy. Lovely internet on a cold, snowy day on April 21st. Anyway. So justice is what concerns us going beyond ourselves. Temperance and prudence, though they can deal with how we act with others, more often than not is how I treat myself. Justice, though, sends me beyond myself. Why? Because we are not meant to be alone. We cannot even be alone. As much as we may want to be neats who keep in our room and just play our games or binge on Netflix, we ultimately cannot exist alone. No man is an island. We have to interact, we have to deal with others. And we are called even to deal with others. So to understand how to act with justice, with liberty and justice for all, isn't that the pledge? It's been forever since I made that, since I did that. So. And of course, this isn't just done on the individual level. It is also meant to be done on the community level in the sense of between communities. And of course, we saw the ultimate way that is done. I'm talking about the applicability or possibility or practicality of war. Justice is not just done between people. It is also done between nations, states. And war is sort of the ultimate expression of that. So it is then that we see how to exercise this towards one another. Finally, the ability to be able to act, especially when it is difficult to. The virtue of fortitude. Firmness in difficulties and constancy in doing the good. Why? If we want to grow, to improve ourselves in the practice of these virtues, we have to remain firm in doing that. Because as habitual creatures, we don't want to change. Though we may know and understand intellectually that we need to, emotionally we may say, no, I like the pattern that I'm in. Yeah. The classic struggle of coming back to classes in the fall. No, I like being able to sleep in until 10 in the morning. No, I like staying up until 3 or 4 at night. I don't want to have to do work. I don't want to have to do this. You have to practice fortitude to be able to change all that. Not only that, at times we have to practice fortitude to be able to do what we are called to do, what we believe is right and just and good, when the world tells us it is not. It is being able not only to make our decisions, but to stick with them, barring the recognition that maybe we are wrong. Hence why it's not just fortitude, it's also prudence, working together. If I have discerned what is right and good, then I need to apply myself to it. Especially understanding that in the perspective of following our conscience, right? Remember what is the conscience? What's the great symbol that the movies teach us? Jiminy Cricket, right? I'm your conscience, Pinocchio. Right? What is a conscience, though? It is supposed to be the inner voice of God speaking to us, telling us to do this or to shun that. We are called to form our consciences rightly toward the good, the true, ultimately towards God, we would say, speaking in a Catholic perspective. But we are meant to follow our conscience. We are not meant to go against it. Only if we recognize that our conscience is in error, is wrong, would we go against it, would we change it. So these cardinal virtues are how it is anyone can exercise and grow in morality, whatever morality one has. But looking at it, beginning to dive more deeply into it from the Catholic, the Christian perspective, the higher, the greater virtues that one is called to practice and the theological virtues. Why are they called theological? First, because they have God as their primary subject. When doing them, but also as the primary object. One towards whom they are being directed. So these theological virtues help us to be able to know God and to encounter God, to serve God. First is faith. To believe. To believe everything that is revealed by God about God. Why? Because some of these truths are, first of all, not apprehendable on a merely natural level. We cannot truly know the mystery of the Trinity just by rationalizing it. We must receive the truth as it is given to us. But also to recognize that I myself am not the source of all truth. And normally we do, of course, recognize that in our education and whatnot. We trust, we have faith in those who teach us. That they're teaching us the truth. We may discover one way or the other, maybe perhaps they are not. But we have faith that we are being handed on the truth. We need that faith as well in being able to understand who and what God is. And what that means for who and what I am as a human being, or we are as humanity. And of course, the main way that we know and understand is through the one who reveals all things. The fullness of that revelation, which is Jesus. Who is not just the word that expresses for us what is to be believed and understood about God, life, the universe, everything, but is also the primary exemplar for us of morality, of Christian morality, of Catholic morality. You want to understand how to practice all this out? Look to Jesus. He not only teaches it, he does it in his own life. The next virtue we practice is hope. To trust that God will give us everything we need in order to overcome any opposition, the help that we need to gain what he wants for us above all, that beatitude or that eternal life. Of course, that's understanding the reality, which is sin, that we are sinful creatures. We are prone to fall away from the standard that we are called to live out. The ways in which we sin, the weight of sin, right? Venial sin, mortal sin, how much it affects, harms us, affects and harms our relationship with God. Why it is that we must rely upon what Jesus does in his passion, his death, his resurrection, to free us from sin. Last, but certainly not least, of theological virtues is the virtue of love. What does it mean to love? We talked about the types of love. To better understand what is the love that God calls us to practice. And above all, what is this type of love? A selfless, a self-giving love that emulates the divine love, that desires the good for the other. We do that towards God. We do that towards our neighbors. The two great commandments of Jesus. Love God with your whole heart, your whole mind, your whole soul. Love your neighbor as yourself. Which also means, by the way, yes, you love yourself as well. Your neighbors do not replace yourself, but they are on an equal level. And the way to be able to do that is the grace that God gives in Jesus. The free and undeserved gift of God that helps us to become what we are to be. Why? Because we cannot do it without God's help. We cannot practice morality without the help of God. But then, diving into and beginning to understand how it is that we do all of this as human persons. That whole theology of the body. To understand what we are. What are we? We are human beings. Human beings who are created, fashioned, shaped in the image and likeness of God. And with that come those original experiences that we are meant to have. That original solitude, that we are unique and in a sense alone among creation, as being able to do all of this. The original unity, that we are called and drawn towards being united together as human beings. The full mystery of that is found in marriage, in the nuptial mystery. Marriage, in both a natural context, but also in the supernatural context, is in the sacrament. And then, of course, original nakedness, the ability to see what we were created to be. In what we were created. We were created in the image and likeness of God. Not just myself, but everyone around me. Every human person that I see, that I encounter, is like that. To see then the effects of sin upon this, how it corrupts, how it makes it difficult or not even impossible to live these experiences out on our own. What it is Jesus helps us to do in order to do it, and then being able to live it out. Living it out in marriage. What is marriage directed towards? Two ends, right? Unitive and procreate. I don't care how much you are sick of hearing me hear that. I say that. Two ends, two equal ends that cannot be one over the other. They both must work together. Unitive, procreative. If one of them's missing, it's not marriage. And it's not how God wanted it to happen. But then also understanding and appreciating who and what I am as a human person. That I'm not just a soul, or a soul trapped in a body, or a soul imprisoned in a body, but I am fully and completely in being a human person, body and soul. To appreciate and to respect that. To understand that's why we are able then to practice this. But then to be able to live it all out. And of course, recognizing how we can live out that eternal reality, even here and now, and that which we looked at last of all. Practice of celibacy. Freely renouncing marriage, the offering of our sexuality towards another, in order to pursue God, to pursue the kingdom of heaven, and to serve God and serve his people. All of it toward one end. All of it towards that eternal happiness. That for which we were created. That which we are called to pursue. That which we can lose by our actions. But we can also gain by our actions. What is the point of morality? It is to pursue, to achieve the good life. Christian morality, Catholic morality, is how can I find that good life in God? Beginning here, beginning in this life, but finding its fulfillment, its completion in the next life. We are moral not because we are merely obliged to, because it's the only thing that will truly make us happy. Not in the pleasures of this life, but in the happiness of knowing and loving God here and being happy with him forever in the next. That is what all of this is being directed towards. These are the principles, these are the means to understand it. If you want it, apply yourself to it. Questions or comments on any of that material? Clear as mud, clear as snow. So, now of course, the temporal happiness that you want to achieve is to be done with this class, right? Oh, of course, all your classes, not just this class. So, of course, your primary focus that remains in your exercise of morality as far as this class is how to get out of this class. Well, what's left? The final exam, of course. Now, before that, real quick, A reminder that I believe, check to make sure that you've gotten everything turned in and completed. All of the participation assignments except this week's, I believe, close at the end of this week. There's the one for this week that will close either Tuesday or Wednesday. I can't remember right now. Actually, I don't even think it's published yet. All the writing assignments and whatnot, either they'll close one way or the other. The absolute last date I accept anything, barring extenuating circumstances, is next Thursday, April 29th. So if you've not gotten everything into me, you've got till at least the date posted on the assignment when the date closes. The very latest, next Thursday. The participation assignments are all still open and able to be taken again. So if you want to improve your grade even more, do it that way. Make sure you got a 10 instead of some 7s or 8s. There is an opportunity for extra credit. Since I got to it extremely late, I decided to make the presentation aspect extra credit instead of mandating it. You all already have enough that you've got to deal with probably in other classes and even in my class. So if you want to turn that in, you can turn that in for up to 25 extra points. So that could be a good help for your grade as well. And then, of course, there's the final exam. The exam is online. It will be published by the end of the day, by the end of today, April 21st. Snowiest day in April. You will basically have 4 long answer essay, however you want to format it, questions to answer. Some of them will be principle questions. So asking things such as, what is obligation versus happiness, or, talk about some of the virtues and whatnot. Some of them will be applied. That you may have to outline some of the principles and then apply them to a situation. Why? Because morality is not just ideas. It is meant to be applied as well, and we need to be able to apply it. The exam is due end of day next Wednesday, April 28th. If you want to do it ahead of time, you're more than welcome to. But again, as I said, nothing will be taken after next Thursday. Unless there are extremely extenuating circumstances that require it, nothing will be taken after next Thursday. You should have everything done and in by then. If you are having issues, if something comes up, you need to let me know. Because otherwise, I'm just going to take it as you basically dropped it out, and I'm just going to give you a failing grade for it, whatever it is, which may even result in a failing grade for the class. Open note, open book, open material. I'll even give you multiple opportunities to necessarily take it, even though I have to grade it. So, questions or concerns on any of that? Final grade or final exam? I should have everything that you've given to me graded by the end of this week. I'm going to spend a lot of today and tomorrow doing that. Probably even Friday as well. So you should basically know what your grade is by the end of this week. Maybe that 25 points will help. Maybe it won't. Maybe you still want to do it. Maybe not. Up to you. All right. I want to thank you all for the opportunity to be able to be here, to teach, to work with you on this. Morality is often a very sticky point, and naturally so, because it concerns what we do, how we act, how we, in a sense, exist. But we need to understand how to do that in order to be able to pursue what it is we are called to be. And in Catholic morality and Christian morality, that's ultimately to be with God. Whether you believe that or not, you're adults. You need to act on your own. But all of this is meant to orient us, we believe, towards the truth which is God. The truth revealed to us in Jesus Christ, maintained by his church, strengthened by his Holy Spirit. If you practice all of this to the greatest extent, you'll achieve that which you are meant to have, true and abiding happiness. And that above all is what I want for all of you. If there's anything more I can do to help with that, I'll be more than happy to do that. If not, I thank you for this semester. I hope you do well on your final exam, on your finishing up everything. I hope you have a happy and warm and pleasant summer. If you need anything else, just let me know. Thank you very much.